I want to open up for some questions if I didn't run over time. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the early decision to restrict script to the standard transaction types, and moreover, if there's any progress or effort or even desire among the core team to loosen those restrictions in the future?
Yeah, the question was about restricting script to certain transaction types. That was one of those, holy crap, we're going to be attacked, we have to do something. Satoshi took a big hammer and disabled a whole bunch of opcodes, and also kind of whitelisted certain transactions as these are the transactions that we'll accept. I think we just had 2 transaction types at that time. The reason Satoshi did that is because we did have one of these, oh crap, a smart person looked at the code and figured out you can cause memory to explode if you create a script that looks exactly like this, for example. I was actually the person, I think, who suggested to Satoshi that maybe a whitelist would work better than a blacklist, right? Don't try to identify a transaction as bad. Whitelisting tends to work a lot better. These are the transactions that we know are good. The second part of your question was on opening that up. It actually is opened up in the 0.10 release. In a pay-to-script hash, your script can be anything, and you can redeem that script. So that restriction is relaxed if you use pay-to-script hash in the 0.10 release. And it'll take a little while for miners to upgrade and the network to upgrade, so your transactions will get relayed in mind. But
can you do that in pay-to-script hash without being subject to the same vulnerability at validation time?
Well, the validator, any pay-to-script hash, basically, there's a little caveat with no ops, but any pay-to-script hash validation will be relayed as valid. So it's opened up in both the funding and the redeeming side. As of 0.10, which isn't out yet, so you'll need to wait 6 months before enough miners have upgraded, enough nodes have upgraded, so your transactions get relayed in mind.
So currently, the minimum confirmation time is 10 minutes. So do you think that's a problem? Is it too slow for current use?
The question is about the minimum transaction time of 10 minutes being too slow. It's certainly too slow for in-person use. My opinion is that there's only one number that really matters, and that's the instant transaction time of I walk up to a cash register and I put my phone there, and then within a second or two the transaction is confirmed and I walk away with my coffee. Right? I think that's the only interesting kind of time period. I think anything beyond that, 10 minutes versus 1 minute doesn't matter. So the problem you want to solve is how do we get instant confirmation? And there are a bunch of ideas on how to do that, some of which involve a trusted third party that promises not to double spend. So maybe you have some of your coins locked up in a multi-signature wallet. That's the kind of green address idea. There are ideas about kind of risk assessing transactions that are unconfirmed. So, we broadcast the transaction to the network and then very quickly get an idea of how much of the network has seen it and have you seen any double spends, and then maybe you can make some assumptions about how likely is it that it will be double spent, and then if the likelihood is low enough and the amount being transferred is low enough, then you just take the risk and you allow the coffee purchase to proceed. I don't know how that will. That's something else I don't know. I don't know how that will all work its way out, and which of any of these approaches will really take off. Yeah.
About the 0.10 update that's going to take 6 months essentially. Are you all tracking kind of what the speed and adoption of is for the Bitcoin updates across nodes, and are you thinking internally about how you can speed that up so we can get more of like a really fast iteration cycle, kind of like Google Chrome or WordPress now with their automatic update stuff?
That's a good question for Corey. But the question was about tracking adoption and then kind of speeding up adoption and automatic updates. I mean, for Bitcoin Core, we've been pretty against automatic updates for a bunch of reasons. Partly, we don't want the responsibility of holding keys that would kind of flip a switch on the whole Bitcoin network overnight. That's just not ideal. Nobody wants to hold those keys. And even, some subset of people don't really want to hold those keys jointly that would have that much power. There's an advantage to having it roll out slowly also, right? If we screw something up, then it affects, it doesn't affect everybody all at once. It affects some number of nodes, and we can come out with another release to fix something if we messed up. Certainly with automatic rollouts, you could do some scheme where you roll out to, a certain percentage over time. As far as tracking releases, there are websites that track, version numbers of clients on the network. And there's actually a really interesting paper at Financial Crypto where they tracked kind of transaction fees, and they could look at, as transaction fees changed in Bitcoin Core, they could figure out, based on the transactions that happened, how much of each version of Bitcoin Core were being used at any given time. So that's interesting data too. Hope that answers your question. Yeah, in the back. That's a good question. The question was about Nick Szabo. Szabo? Anybody know? Szabo, thanks. Proposed BitGold, which was a Bitcoin-like system, and in BitGold, the value of the tokens were related to the difficulty of creating them, which is not true in Bitcoin, right? It doesn't matter what the difficulty is. You're awarded 25 Bitcoins, whether the difficulty is 10 billion or 1. I hadn't thought about that. I think it actually probably would have been better if Satoshi had somehow tied the difficulty into the number of Bitcoins created. Although, I think Satoshi did know that, you should try to keep things pretty simple. Simpler is better. For security and for just, the ability to actually get a system out. So, I don't know, I'd have to think really long and hard about, could you come up with a system that was more fair because people putting more work into creating these tokens would be rewarded more. I don't know, there might be a runaway effect. I think we're actually over secure with mining right now. And if the higher the difficulty went, the more Bitcoins miners got. I don't know, that might create a bad feedback loop. It's an interesting question. Cool. One more question? Yeah.
Well, first of all, congratulations on the successful 20 megabyte block size task.
Oh, that's not done yet.
I saw the blog post about it. So I know that the core team has historically been opposed to loading the blockchain with non-payment transactions, suggesting side chains or alternate blockchains as another measure. But given given Peter Todd's objection to using side chains for anything other than new testing new Bitcoin protocol extensions and the utility of having things on the Bitcoin network, do you think that larger block sizes will pave the way to allowing more use cases for Bitcoin other than monetary transactions, such as maybe larger off-return outputs or anything similar?
So the question was about bloating, scare quotes, the blockchain with non-financial data, and whether raising the block size will allow more different applications. I mean, the issue of bloating, I think I have a slightly different opinion than some of the other core developers, in that I think we should be completely politically neutral about what the blockchain is used for. Whether that's paying people for something or whether that's as a ledger that just records, transactions. I think we need to be politically neutral and let the fee system do what it's designed to do, and let the most valuable uses of the blockchain kind of pay to use that global ledger. So I think that's a little different from some other people who have really strong feelings about people who want to pay to put other kinds of data in the blockchain. I think a lot of this will go away once we have pruning. People will start to realize that the blockchain is not a permanent record. If you want a permanent record, you probably need some other system, a permanent record of like large amounts of data. The blockchain is just not designed to do that. It's designed to be a transaction system where you have a ledger with a kind of currently open set of transactions that haven't settled yet. Will increasing the block size enable other applications? I think it will make Bitcoin transactions cheaper, right? That will be the primary thing, is you can have more transactions that cost less. Now, whether or not that enables other applications of the blockchain, I think it depends on how cheap transactions get.
I mean, right now there are protocol limitations, like you can only have one off-return output, and it allows you to encode 40 bytes. And I'm really happy to hear you say that, because I agree that it should be politically neutral, but do you think that there will actually be a movement among really the core team to enable use cases that might require more off-return output?
Maybe. I mean, I think it would be okay. I can't speak for the rest of the core team. And the core team tends to be incredibly conservative. Right? That's why we started with a 40-byte op return. There's a pull request to increase that to 80 bytes right now that I think the winds are blowing. It will probably be accepted, and so it'll be allowed to associate an arbitrary 80 bytes with each transaction. There are all sorts of tricks you can play if you want to store more data than that. Certainly with the P2SH opening up for any transaction, basically, you can suddenly store a bunch of data in your script signatures, for example, if you really, really want to. They will get pruned away, and so people won't have to store those for you, and that's the way it should be. I think it's interesting that if the block size does not change, it's possible that non-financial transactions might start to push out the financial transactions, because if you're recording a car title on the blockchain, maybe you're willing to spend $10, whereas I'm not willing to spend $10 to buy, well, a cup of coffee is probably a bad example, to buy a month worth of web server hosting or whatever. I think we're done with the questions. I'll be around all day, so come grab me. Thanks.
Thank you, Gavin. Before our next presenters come up,